The observation station hung in the darkness of space like a crystal spider web. Inside, Ambassador Velthera stood before the massive viewing screen, her crystalline body reflecting the light in sharp angles. She had been watching the small blue planet below for 3 months now, following the protocols that governed all first contact situations. The planet's dominant species called themselves humans, and they lived in small villages scattered across the green and brown continents. Velthera's compound eyes focused on a particular section of the screen. 3 small humans moved through a forest near the base of a mountain. Children, according to the biological data. The youngest appeared to be around 6 solar cycles old, the oldest perhaps 8. They wore simple clothes made from plant fibers and carried small bags on their backs. Behind Velthera, Commander Drask shifted his massive bulk. The Horvian officer resembled what humans might call a bear, if that bear stood on 2 legs, had 6 limbs, and possessed enough strength to crush steel. His species had evolved from apex predators, and every instinct in his body was trained to recognize danger. "The children are approaching the rocky area again," Drask said, his voice a low rumble. "They have been coming to this location for 5 days now." Velthera nodded, her crystalline neck making soft clicking sounds. "I have noticed. They seem drawn to the elevation. Perhaps it is play behavior. Many juvenile species engage in climbing activities to develop physical coordination." The 3 children reached the base of a rocky cliff face. The boy named Hyunwoo pointed upward, his small hand tracing a path along the stone. The girl Jia nodded enthusiastically, while the older boy Tae-young studied the cliff with careful eyes. "Standard juvenile behavior," Velthera murmured, making notes on her datapad. "Physical development through environmental interaction. This aligns with patterns observed in 73% of tool-using species at similar developmental stages." Then something moved in the trees behind the children. Drask's 6 limbs tensed immediately, his tactical display activated, flooding his vision with threat assessments and combat scenarios. "Ambassador, we have incoming predators. 3 large mammals, classification Ursidae. Mass approximately 200 to 300 kilograms each. Cubs accompanying them, 4 total." Velthera's crystalline form flashed red, a sign of alarm in her species. Her fingers moved rapidly across the control panel. "Activate emergency intervention protocols. Prepare to deploy protective fields around the human juveniles." The bears emerged from the forest. They were massive creatures covered in brown fur with powerful muscles moving beneath their coats. The mother bears walked on 4 legs, their heads low, their dark eyes fixed on the 3 human children who stood completely unaware at the base of the cliff. "Intervention in 5 seconds, Drask announced, his voice tight with military precision. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. Then the smallest human, Jia, turned around. She saw the bears and smiled. Drask's finger froze over the intervention button. "Ambassador, the human juvenile is not displaying fear responses. Heart rate is elevated, but not in distress range. Facial expression indicates pleasure." Hyunwoo had turned as well. He waved at the bears. Actually waved, his small hand moving back and forth in what every species in the galaxy recognized as a greeting gesture. "Hello, friends." His voice carried clearly through the audio sensors. "We came back like we said we would." The bear cubs bounded forward, their movements playful and energetic. They were smaller than the adults, but each still outweighed any of the human children by at least 4 times. Standard predator behavior would dictate aggression, dominance displays, territorial defense, or at minimum, cautious investigation. Instead, the largest cub walked directly to Hyunwoo and pressed its nose against the boy's chest. Hyunwoo laughed and rubbed the bear's ears. The sound of the cub's contented rumbling filled the audio feed. Velthera's red crystalline light shifted to purple, indicating confusion. "This is not possible. Cross-species interaction at this level of comfort requires decades of conditioning, sometimes centuries. The human settlement has existed for less than 2 standard years." Tae-young had moved to greet another cub, moving slowly and keeping his body low. His posture was perfect, exactly what a submissive member of a bear's social group would display. But there had been no time for him to learn this. No human on this planet had ever seen a bear before they arrived here. How does he know to do that? Drask whispered, his military training failing to provide any framework for what he was witnessing. Jia sat down on the ground, and immediately a black bear cub climbed into her lap. The cub was nearly as large as she was, but the little girl simply wrapped her arms around it and giggled as it licked her face. The mother bears watched from a few meters away, completely calm, showing no signs of protective aggression. One of the mother bears approached Hyunwoo. The boy looked up at the massive creature, easily 10 times his weight, armed with claws that could tear through wood and teeth that could crush bone. He smiled at her. Just smiled, with complete trust and no fear at all. The mother bear lowered her head and gently nudged the boy toward the cliff face. Hyunwoo followed her guidance, placing his hands on the rock. The bear cub he had greeted earlier moved beside him, demonstrating how to grip the stone, where to place paws for the best hold. "They are teaching him," Velthara said, her voice barely audible. "The predators are teaching the human juvenile how to climb." Taeyoung and Jia were receiving similar instruction from other cubs. The young bears showed them footholds, demonstrated weight distribution, and gently corrected their positioning when they chose unstable routes. The mother bears supervised, occasionally grunting instructions that the human children somehow seemed to understand. Hyunwoo climbed 3 meters up the rock face, his small fingers finding holds that the bear cub had indicated. When he reached a difficult section, he paused, uncertain. The cub beside him made a soft huffing sound and placed its paw on a different rock. Hyunwoo followed the suggestion and found the path much easier. "This should not be possible," Drask said, his tactical mind completely overwhelmed. Interspecies cooperation at this level does not occur naturally. It requires genetic engineering, neural linking, or decades of behavioral conditioning. These humans are children. They have been on this planet for less than 20 standard months. Jia reached the same height as Hyunwoo and looked over at him, her face bright with joy. "This is so fun," she called out. The bear cub in front of her made a sound that the translation algorithms could not interpret, but that somehow carried the same feeling of happiness. Velthara watched for another hour as the children climbed with their bear companions. When the session ended, the humans and bears sat together at the base of the cliff, sharing water from a stream. Hyunwoo produced some fruit from his bag and offered pieces to the cubs. The mother bears accepted portions as well, eating calmly beside the tiny humans who should have been prey. Finally, as the sun began to set, the bears retreated into the forest. The children waved goodbye, calling out promises to return tomorrow. The bears responded with low rumbling calls that sounded almost like affection. When the children had left, Velthara turned to Drask. The commander's 6 limbs were tense, his posture defensive despite there being no threat in the observation station. "I'm calling an emergency council session," Velthara said quietly. "This changes everything." Drask nodded slowly. "What we just witnessed should be impossible. No species in galactic history has achieved this level of natural cooperation with apex predators. The humans are not using technology. They are not using training. They are simply befriending them." Velthara began composing her report, her fingers shaking slightly as she worked. "Commander, in your military assessment, what does this mean for galactic security?" Drask was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with implications. "Ambassador, if humans can turn apex predators into allies this easily, this naturally, then they possess a strategic advantage unlike anything we have ever encountered. When they reach the stars, they will not need weapons or fleets. They will simply make friends with everything they meet." Velthara's crystalline form flickered through several colors before settling on a deep, dark blue. "Fear. And if they can befriend predators on their own world, what happens when they meet us? The Council contains species from every evolutionary background, predators, prey, and everything between. If humans can bridge those gaps as easily as they befriend bears, then they could unite the galaxy," Drask finished, "or conquer it without firing a single shot." Velthara looked back at the screen, where the empty cliff face was now bathed in evening light. Somewhere in the forest, 3 human children were returning home, completely unaware that they had just terrified the most powerful government in the known universe. "I will title my report," Velthara said softly, "The Human Question, and I will recommend that the High Chancellor himself review it immediately." She pressed the transmission button, sending her observations across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. In 3 days, the entire Galactic Council would watch the footage of human children climbing with bear cubs. And in 3 days, the Council would begin to understand what they were really observing. 3 days after Velthara sent her report, the observation station received a new arrival. Analyst Kix materialized in the docking bay, its form shifting and flowing like living light. The Nethrim were beings of pure energy held together by complex magnetic fields, and Kix was considered one of the finest behavioral researchers in the known galaxy. It had studied over 200 species across 70 star systems. Velthera met Kix in the main observation chamber. Through the viewing screen, the human village below looked peaceful and ordinary. Small buildings made of wood and stone. Gardens where humans grew food. Children playing in open spaces. Nothing about the scene suggested anything unusual. "Show me the footage," Kix said, its voice like wind chimes in a storm. Velthera played the recording of Hyunwoo, Jia, and Tae-young with the bear cubs. Kix watched in silence, its energy form pulsing in colors that indicated deep thought. When the footage ended, Kix remained still for several minutes. "Play it again," Kix finally said. "Slower this time. I want to observe the micro-expressions and body language patterns." They watched the footage 5 more times. Each viewing revealed new details. The way Hyunwoo tilted his head when approaching the mother bear, exposing his neck in a gesture of trust. How Jia's breathing synchronized with the cub in her lap. The subtle shifts in Tae-young's posture that matched the bear's own movement patterns. "This is not learned behavior," Kix said. "These children have no training in xenobiology or animal psychology, yet they are displaying expert-level understanding of Ursine social protocols. It is as if they instinctively know how to communicate." Drask entered the chamber, carrying datapads filled with reports. "Analyst Kix, we have gathered additional surveillance over the past 3 days. The situation is more widespread than initially observed." He activated the viewing screen and showed new footage. In one scene, human adults walked through the forest accompanied by wolves. The wolves hunted small prey and shared their kills with the humans. In another, a human woman worked in a garden, while a family of foxes slept nearby, completely at ease. A third showed human children playing near a den where large cats cared for their young. "This is happening everywhere in the human settlements," Drask explained. "We have documented over 300 separate incidents of peaceful human-predator interaction in just 72 hours. Bears, wolves, large cats, raptorial birds, even venomous reptiles. Every apex predator on this planet treats humans as allies or family members." Kix's energy form began to pulse faster, indicating excitement or alarm. "I need to run biochemical analyses. There must be a pheromone component or some form of chemical communication we are missing." Over the next week, Kix deployed advanced scanning equipment that could detect molecular interactions from orbit. The results were fascinating and disturbing. Humans did produce unique pheromone signatures, but not in the way other species did. Their biochemical outputs shifted constantly, adapting to match whatever creature they were near. When Hyunwoo approached a bear, his body chemistry altered to produce compounds that bears associated with safety and family. When Jia played with wolf cubs, her scent profile changed to something wolves recognized as pack. "They are biochemical shapeshifters," Kix explained to the assembled observers. "Not physically, but chemically. Their bodies automatically produce whatever signals are needed to communicate peaceful intent to other species." Velthera examined the data with growing concern. "But this is unconscious? They are not aware they are doing this?" "Correct," Kix confirmed. "It appears to be an automatic evolutionary adaptation. My hypothesis is that humans evolved in an environment with numerous apex predators. Rather than developing superior physical abilities to fight these predators, they evolved the ability to befriend them." Drask pulled up historical data on human evolution. "According to our biological surveys, humans evolved alongside creatures called lions, hyenas, wolves, and bears on their original planet. They were not the strongest or fastest species. They survived by forming alliances." "But it goes deeper than chemistry," Kix continued, displaying more analysis. "Watch this footage carefully." On the screen, a human woman named Da-un worked at a botanical research station. She was the mother of Hyunwoo, studying plant life for the human colony. As she collected samples, a massive bear approached from the forest. The bear was easily 3 times her mass and could kill her with one swipe of its paw. Da-un looked up and smiled. She reached into her pack and pulled out some fish, offering it to the bear. The bear accepted the food and then did something remarkable. It led Da-un deeper into the forest, occasionally looking back to make sure she followed. After 10 minutes, the bear brought her to a grove where rare flowering plants grew. The bear is helping her research, Velthara whispered. It understands what she needs and is assisting her. Now watch this, Kix said, switching to another scene. An elderly human named Sang-Ho sat outside his home, surrounded by a group of younger humans. He was telling stories, his weathered hands moving as he spoke. The audio was clear through the surveillance equipment. Long ago, before we came to this world, our ancestors lived with the Tooth Brothers and Claw Sisters, Sang-Ho said. They taught us to hunt. We taught them to plan. They shared their strength. We shared our wisdom. We survived the long dark times because we had each other. A young human asked, "Are the Tooth Brothers the wolves, grandfather?" Sang-Ho nodded. Wolves, yes, and Claw Sisters are the great cats, and the Strongbacks are the bears. Every creature with fang and claw became our family, because we learned to speak the old language, the language without words, the language of trust. Kix paused the footage. These are not recent developments. This is ancient knowledge passed down through generations. Humans have been doing this for thousands of their years. Drask reviewed military reports, his expression growing darker. I have been running strategic simulations. If humans expand into space and maintain this ability, the military implications are severe. Imagine human ambassadors arriving on council worlds. Within weeks, they could potentially befriend security animals, create alliances with indigenous species, and establish networks that bypass all official channels. You are suggesting they could infiltrate through friendship? Velthara asked. I am suggesting they would not need to infiltrate, Drask replied. They would simply be invited in. Who would refuse friendship with beings who make you feel safe and understood? Kix deployed sensors to track specific humans over extended periods. One subject was a teenage human named Bora. She was 16 years old and led something called a conservation team. Her work involved managing the ecological balance in her region. The footage showed Bora walking through territories claimed by different predator groups. She moved from wolf packs to bear families to great cat clans, and each group welcomed her. She carried no weapons, no protective gear. She simply walked among creatures that could kill her instantly, and they treated her as one of their own. Look at this interaction. Kix highlighted a specific moment. Bora knelt beside a wolf that was limping. She examined the animal's paw gently, found a thorn embedded in the pad, and carefully removed it. The wolf licked her face in gratitude. Then the wolf led her to a different part of the forest where deer were overgrazing vegetation. The wolf was reporting a problem to her. The predator is asking for help managing prey populations, Drask said, his voice filled with disbelief. It trusts the human to make decisions about its territory. But it was Bora's younger brother, Jae-Won, who truly frightened the observers. The 12-year-old boy possessed an even stronger version of the human gift. Footage showed him sitting in a forest clearing, surrounded by wolves, bears, and large cats simultaneously. Species that would normally avoid each other or compete aggressively were peaceful in his presence. Jae-Won placed his hand on an injured wolf's head. The medical scanners detected something extraordinary. The boy's biochemistry shifted dramatically, producing compounds that had analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties. The wolf's pain responses decreased measurably. Its stress hormones normalized. He is healing it, Velthara said, her crystalline form shifting through colors of amazement and fear. His body is producing medicines to help the injured animal. Kix ran the data through multiple analysis programs. This goes beyond anything we have observed. The boy is not just communicating. He is physically altering his biochemistry to provide medical treatment. This suggests humans can consciously or unconsciously control their internal chemistry at a level we have never encountered. The investigation continued for 2 more weeks. Every day brought new discoveries. Humans teaching predators to solve complex problems. Predators teaching humans survival skills. Ecosystems reorganizing themselves around human settlements, not because humans dominated them, but because every species wanted to be near them. Velthara compiled all the data into a comprehensive report. As she prepared to send it to the Galactic Council, she looked at Drask and Kix. "We need to include a historical comparison," she said quietly. "There is precedent for this type of ability." Drask nodded grimly. "The Vorhath." "Who were the Vorhath?" Kix asked. As a younger being, it had not lived through that dark period of galactic history. Velthara's colors shifted to deep purple. The council chamber was the largest structure in the known galaxy. It had been built 3,000 years ago from materials harvested from a collapsed neutron star, and it orbited no planet or sun, but floated in the void between galaxies. Inside its massive halls, representatives from 847 species gathered to watch Velthara's report. High Chancellor Morthex entered the chamber last. He was ancient beyond measure, his species having evolved when the universe was young. The eternal cortex existed as pure consciousness housed in crystallized thought forms. Morthex's current body was his 73rd, each one grown to replace the previous as centuries passed. He had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, had made decisions that saved billions and decisions that had cost billions more. He took his position at the center of the chamber and spoke with a voice that resonated through every mind present. "We gather to address the human question. Ambassador Velthara has presented evidence that requires our immediate attention. Let us observe." The chamber's viewing system activated, filling the vast space with holographic displays. Every council member could see the footage from multiple angles simultaneously. They watched Hyunwoo, Jia, and Taeyong climb with bear cubs. They saw Daeun working alongside predators in the forest. They witnessed Jaewon healing an injured wolf through touch alone. The chamber erupted in debate. Representatives from predator species argued that humans posed an existential threat. Representatives from prey species worried about humans disrupting the careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace. Even neutral species expressed concern about this unprecedented ability. "This is not possible through natural evolution," shouted a Kravik delegate, its tentacles writhing in agitation. "There must be technological intervention, secret genetic engineering. No species evolves this capability naturally," but Kix's data showed no signs of artificial enhancement. Humans were completely natural, completely organic. Their ability to befriend predators was as real as their need to breathe. Velthara stood before the council, her crystalline form reflecting the lights from hundreds of different species. "Distinguished members, I propose that we conduct deeper observations. The human named Bora has organized a conservation effort that involves multiple predator groups. With your permission, I would like to deploy advanced monitoring to understand the full scope of human capabilities." The council granted permission, and new surveillance equipment was positioned over Bora's region. What they discovered over the following days shocked even the most experienced xenobiologists. Bora had organized a network that spanned hundreds of square kilometers. She had established communication protocols with 12 different predator groups and 4 herbivore populations. When forest fires threatened one area, she coordinated evacuations that involved predators guiding prey animals to safety. Species that had been enemies for millions of years worked together under her direction. "She has created peace between predator and prey," Velthara reported to the council. "Not through force or technology, but through trust. The animals believe in her. They know she wants what is best for all of them." Drask presented military analyses. "Members of the council, I have completed strategic projections. If humans expand into space with this ability intact, within 500 years they could establish influence networks across every inhabited world. They would not need military forces. They would not need economic pressure. They would simply make friends." A Quillinath military commander stood. "Friendship is not a weapon." "Isn't it?" Drask countered. "What would you do if a human arrived on your world, spoke to your security animals, and within weeks had befriended every creature you relied upon for protection? What if your own guard beasts began to trust humans more than they trusted you?" The chamber fell silent. It was a terrifying scenario because it was not based on violence or deception. It was based on something far more fundamental, the simple desire of living creatures to be understood and accepted. But the debate took a darker turn when surveillance caught new footage of Jaewon. The young boy had ventured deep into the wilderness alone, something his parents had forbidden, but that he had done anyway with the fearless confidence of youth. The cameras tracked him as he entered a region where multiple apex predators competed for territory. Bears, great cats, and wolf packs all claimed this area. Conflicts between these groups were common and usually violent. Humans avoided the zone entirely. Jaewon walked into the center of this contested territory and sat down on a fallen log. Within minutes, predators from all three groups began to appear from the forest. The council watched as bears, cats, and wolves approached the small human child. "Activate emergency intervention," Velthera ordered. "The child is in extreme danger." But Drask held up one massive hand. "Wait, look at their body language." The predators were not attacking. They were gathering around Jaewon like supplicants approaching a king. A massive bear arrived first and lowered its head to the boy. A great cat followed, moving with the fluid grace that made its species such efficient hunters. Wolf pack leaders emerged from three different directions. Jaewon stood and placed his hands on the bear's head. He spoke softly, too quietly for the audio sensors to capture clearly, but his tone was gentle and calm. The bear rumbled contentedly. Then Jaewon moved to the great cat and stroked its neck. The cat's purr was loud enough to register on the equipment. He is mediating a territorial dispute, Kix realized. The predators have brought their conflict to him for resolution. The council watched in stunned silence as Jaewon spent the next hour working with the predators. He walked the boundaries of the contested territory with representatives from each group. He indicated which areas would belong to whom. He settled disputes about water sources and hunting grounds, and incredibly, the predators accepted his decisions. When Jaewon finished, the three predator groups separated peacefully. There was no fighting, no aggressive displays. They had brought their problem to the human child, and he had solved it to everyone's satisfaction. "This changes everything," Morthex said, his ancient voice heavy with implications. "This is not simply befriending animals. This is leadership. The predators are deferring to human judgment. They are accepting humans as authority figures in their social structures." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate action, others calling for more study. Morthex raised his consciousness form, and silence fell instantly. "I will share something that most of you have never heard," the High Chancellor said. 12,000 years ago, long before most of your species had achieved spaceflight, the Council encountered a civilization called the Vorhath. Morthex activated historical archives. Images filled the chamber showing a species that resembled humans in some ways but with subtle differences. They had larger eyes, longer fingers, and skin that shifted colors based on their emotions. The Vorhath possessed an ability similar to what we observe in humans. They could bond with any living creature. They could communicate across species barriers. And they used this ability to build an empire that spanned 300 star systems. The historical footage showed Vorhath walking among alien species like gods among mortals. Predatory species that normally attacked intruders welcomed Vorhath as family. Entire ecosystems reorganized themselves around Vorhath settlements. They did not conquer through violence. Morthex continued. They conquered through love. Every world they visited fell under their influence because every living thing wanted to be near them. They promised peace, unity, and understanding. And they delivered it, but at a terrible cost. The footage shifted to show the darker side of Vorhath expansion. Worlds that resisted their influence found themselves isolated as their own animals and ecosystems turned against them. Species that refused to accept Vorhath authority discovered that their food animals would no longer cooperate. Their guard beasts would no longer protect them. Their entire biospheres rejected them in favor of the Vorhath. It was not violent conquest, Morthex said. It was something worse. Complete psychological and ecological domination. Within 500 years, the Vorhath controlled everything. No species could resist because resistance meant losing connection with your own world's life forms. A young Nethrim delegate asked the question everyone was thinking. What stopped them? Morthex's ancient presence dimmed with sorrow. The Council made the most difficult decision in our history. We determined that the Vorhath were too dangerous to exist. We authorized complete eradication. Every Vorhath was eliminated. Every world they had touched was quarantined for 1,000 years. We committed genocide to save galactic freedom. The weight of that confession hung in the chamber like a physical presence. The Council, which prided itself on peaceful resolution and diplomatic solutions, had once chosen extinction over coexistence. The protocols we established afterward, Morthex continued, the laws against befriending predators, the restrictions on cross-species empathy research, the prohibitions on emotional manipulation technology, all of these were created to ensure that nothing like the Vorhath could ever rise again. The emergency transmission from the observation station sent shockwaves through the council chamber. On every viewing screen, the same image appeared: a human spacecraft approaching the monitoring station's location. The vessel was crewed by galactic standards, clearly built with early spaceflight technology, but it was functional and it was moving with clear purpose. Belthara's voice crackled through the communication system. The human vessel is broadcasting mathematical sequences on multiple frequencies. They are attempting to establish communication. They know we are here. High Chancellor Morthex's consciousness form pulsed with urgent calculation. How did they detect us? Our stealth systems are designed to be undetectable by pre-spaceflight civilizations. Drask's analysis appeared on the shared displays. They detected our gravitational signature. Our station's mass creates subtle distortions in local spacetime. The humans have been studying these distortions for weeks. They concluded correctly that an artificial structure was present. In the council chamber, panic began to spread among some delegations. A Kravik representative demanded immediate military response. Destroy the vessel before they get closer. We have not authorized first contact. They are violating our observation protocols. But Councillor Ixara, a being of pure energy from the Luminoth species, rose in opposition. Her form glowed with passionate intensity. They are violating nothing. They detected our presence in their own star system and came to investigate. This is their space. We are the intruders here. The debate fractured the council into 3 distinct factions within minutes. General Throck, the Horvian Supreme Commander, rallied military-minded delegates who saw humans as an existential threat. He pulled up tactical displays showing worst-case scenarios. If we allow contact, we legitimize their expansion, Throck argued, his 6 limbs gesturing at projections that filled the chamber. Within decades, they will develop faster than light travel. Within centuries, they will be on our worlds. Every species here evolved as either predator or prey. Those evolutionary paths shaped our psychology, our societies, our very understanding of power and survival. He highlighted the human children playing with bear cubs. But humans evolved as something else entirely. They evolved as diplomats, as bridge builders. They can stand between predator and prey and make both sides feel safe. Do you understand what that means for galactic politics? A delegate from the prey-evolved Tethran species spoke up nervously. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. The Council has been fractured along predator-prey lines since its founding. Wars have been fought over these ancient instincts. Maybe humans could heal those divisions. General Throck's response was harsh, or they could exploit them. Imagine human negotiators in every diplomatic conflict. Imagine them making deals that favor their interests while making everyone believe they are acting fairly. Their very presence alters behavior. That is not diplomacy. That is manipulation. Councillor Ixara countered with equal passion. You speak of manipulation, but we have seen no evidence of it. Every observation shows humans forming genuine relationships. They heal injured animals. They teach and learn. They make peace between enemies. This is not manipulation. This is empathy at a scale we have never achieved. She brought up data showing council effectiveness over the past 1,000 years. Conflicts between predator and prey-evolved species had resulted in 17 major wars, countless smaller skirmishes, and trade disruptions that had cost trillions of lives. We have never solved this problem. Our evolutionary paths haunt us every day. We create peace through threat of force, through carefully balanced power structures through fear, but humans create peace through connection. Morthex listened to both arguments, his ancient mind calculating probabilities and outcomes. He had lived through the Vorhath genocide and had voted in favor of it. That decision haunted him still, but he had believed it necessary. Now he faced the same choice again. On the viewing screens, the human vessel continued its approach. Inside it, according to scans, were 5 humans. The crew was small, but their vessel was equipped with sensors more advanced than the Council had predicted. They are developing faster than our models projected, Kix reported from the observation station. At this rate, they will achieve faster-than-light capability within 50 years, not the 200 years we estimated. Velthara added, and their message broadcasts are sophisticated. They are using mathematical proofs to demonstrate intelligence, artistic representations to show cultural development, and biological data to introduce themselves. Whoever designed this first contact protocol understands the principles of xenocommunication better than some council species. Back on the planet's surface, a new development caught everyone's attention. A young human woman named So-Jin was leading an emergency response to a forest fire. The fire had started from a lightning strike and was spreading rapidly. Normal protocol would be to evacuate human settlements and let the fire burn itself out. But So-Jin did something remarkable. She organized a multi-species firefighting effort. The surveillance footage showed her directing teams of humans, bears, wolves, and herbivores in coordinated firefighting efforts. The bears used their strength to create fire breaks by knocking down trees. The wolves herded smaller animals to safety. The herbivores, normally terrified of predators, worked alongside them because they trusted So-Jin's leadership. Within hours, the fire was contained with minimal loss of life. When it was over, So-Jin gathered all the species together and thanked them individually. She touched each animal, speaking softly, and the creatures responded with affection and trust. "This is what concerns me most," General Throck said, watching the footage. She convinced prey animals to work alongside their natural predators. She overwrote millions of years of evolutionary instinct in a few hours. Imagine that ability applied to galactic politics. Imagine humans convincing prey-evolved species to trust predator-evolved species in military alliances. The entire balance of power would collapse. But a delegate from the Quillinath, a species with both predator and prey ancestral traits, offered a different perspective. Or imagine the possibilities. My species suffers internal conflict because we have mixed evolutionary heritage. We understand both predator and prey psychology, but we struggle to reconcile them. We have high rates of mental illness, societal dysfunction, and identity conflicts. Perhaps humans could teach us how to integrate these opposing instincts. Counselor Ixara seized on this argument. Exactly. We have spent 10,000 years trying to overcome our evolutionary past through technology, through law, through force. But humans might offer a biological solution, a way to actually change how species relate to each other at a fundamental level. The debate continued for hours. Representatives presented data, argued philosophy, and calculated risks. But the human vessel kept approaching, and eventually a decision would have to be made. Finally, Morthex called for a formal vote. We will decide whether to invoke the Vorhath Protocol. This decision requires unanimous agreement from all council members. We are choosing whether humanity lives or dies. The voting process began. It would take hours as each of the 847 species cast their decision. The chamber filled with tension as results slowly accumulated. Meanwhile, on the observation station, Velthara received a direct communication from the human vessel. The message was simple and elegant. "Hello, we come in peace. We would like to meet you." Drask stood beside her watching the human ship on the tactical display. "Ambassador, regardless of what the council decides, they are here now. We cannot unhear their greeting. We cannot pretend we don't know they exist." Velthara nodded slowly. "Commander, in your professional military opinion, what should we do?" Drask was silent for a long moment. His species had evolved as apex predators. His every instinct told him to view other species as either threats or prey. But he thought about the children climbing with bear cubs, about Jaewon settling disputes between predators, about So-Jin organizing cooperative firefighting efforts. "I have spent my life studying warfare," Drask finally said. "I understand conflict, strategy, and survival. But these humans have shown me something I never considered. What if the greatest military advantage is not having to fight at all? What if the ultimate strategic victory is making enemies into friends?" Before Velthara could respond, new images appeared from the planet's surface. A human named Kyung-Soo, who served as a village leader, was addressing his community about expansion plans. The surveillance system captured his speech clearly. "We have been on this world for 3 years now," Kyung-Soo said to the gathered humans. "We have built homes, planted crops, and started families. But this land is not empty. It belongs to those who were here before us. The bears, the wolves, the cats, and all the others. We share this space with them. So before we expand our village, we must ask their permission." The council representatives watched as Kyung-Soo did exactly that. He traveled to each predator territory in the region and presented his expansion plans through a combination of verbal communication, physical models, and that inexplicable human quality that made other species understand and trust him. High Chancellor Morthex stood at the center of the council chamber, his ancient consciousness weighing heavier than the collapsed star material that formed the chamber walls. The final vote count appeared before him, visible to every representative present. The decision was not unanimous. It could never have been unanimous. But there was a majority. 433 species voted against invoking the Vorhath Protocol. 414 voted in favor. The margin was thin, but it was enough. Humanity would live, but the vote came with conditions. Morthex's voice resonated through every mind in the chamber. Humanity will not be eliminated, but neither will they be given unrestricted access to the galaxy. We will initiate first contact with strict oversight. We will observe their integration into the galactic community carefully. And if they show signs of following the Vorhath path of domination, we will revisit this decision. On the observation station, Velthara received the authorization to proceed with first contact. Her crystalline form pulsed with colors indicating relief mixed with apprehension. She opened a communication channel to the human vessel. Inside the ship, Harmony's Reach, Captain Heejin stood on the bridge, surrounded by her small crew. She was 35 years old, with dark eyes that held both wisdom and wonder. When the alien signal came through, breaking the silence that had stretched for hours, she gripped the armrests of her command chair tightly. The message was simple, translated through mathematical and linguistic patterns. We greet you, humans of Earth and this world you call your home. We are the Galactic Council. We have been watching you. We would like to meet. Heejin's chief scientist, a man named Dong Hyun, analyzed the signal with shaking hands. Captain, the sophistication of this transmission is centuries beyond our capability. They could destroy us with barely a thought, but they are choosing to talk instead. Hyejin nodded. Then we will talk too. Open a channel. She spoke into the communication system, knowing her words would be translated by alien technology she could barely imagine. We are honored by your greeting. We have wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we are not. We would very much like to meet you as well. Velthara's response came quickly. We propose a meeting on your planet's surface, in the location where your children play with the native predators. We believe this setting will be meaningful for both our peoples. On the planet below, preparations began. Hyunwoo, Jia, and Tae-young were told that visitors would be coming from the sky. The children accepted this news with the easy adaptability of youth. They were more excited about showing the visitors their climbing progress than concerned about the alien nature of their guests. The council delegation assembled quickly. Velthara would lead, accompanied by Drask, Kix, and representatives from 5 other species. They chose delegates from both predator and prey evolutionary backgrounds, wanting to present the diversity of galactic civilization. As the alien vessels descended toward the meeting site, Kyung-soo gathered a welcoming committee. He included young So-jin, village elder Sang-ho, and a dozen others, Yao, but he also invited the bear families, wolf packs, and great cats who lived near the village. If the aliens wanted to understand humanity, they needed to see the full picture. The moment of first contact happened on a sunny morning in the forest, clearing where the children had been taking climbing lessons. 2 alien shuttles landed gently on the grass. Doors opened and beings emerged that looked nothing like anything humanity had imagined. Velthara stepped out first, her crystalline body refracting sunlight into rainbow patterns. Drask followed, his massive 6-limbed form causing the humans to step back instinctively. Kix floated down as pure energy held together by magnetic fields, appearing like a small aurora in humanoid shape. Captain Hyejin stood at the front of the human delegation. She had removed her military insignia and wore simple civilian clothes. She wanted this first meeting to be as unthreatening as possible. Beside her, Dong Hyun held a portable translation device, though nobody knew if it would work with alien languages. For a long moment, both groups simply stared at each other. Humans looking at aliens. Aliens looking at the species that had terrified the entire Galactic Council. Then Hyunwoo broke the tension. The 7-year-old boy walked forward with the fearless curiosity of childhood. He approached Velthara and looked up at her crystalline form with wide, wondering eyes. "Are you made of diamonds?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine interest rather than fear. Velthera's form flickered through several colors as her translation system processed the question. When she understood, she lowered herself to the child's height. "I am made of something similar. My species grows these bodies from crystallized minerals. You are Hyunwoo. We have been watching you climb with your bear friends." The boy's face lit up with excitement. "You saw me? Did you see when I made it? All the way to the top of the big rock?" "We did," Velthara said, and despite being an alien intelligence, her voice carried warmth. "You climbed very well." Jia and Taeyong approached next, their initial fear overcome by Hyunwoo's example. Soon the three children were introducing the aliens to their bear friends, explaining the climbing lessons and chattering about their daily activities as if visitors from space were perfectly normal. Captain Hyejin watched this interaction with a slight smile. She stepped forward and bowed respectfully to the alien delegation. "I am Captain Hyejin. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to our world. We have many questions, but first, would you like to sit? We have prepared food and drink if you can consume what we offer." The delegation accepted, and what followed was the strangest diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Humans and aliens sat together in a forest clearing, surrounded by bears, wolves, and great cats who watched the proceedings with calm interest. The predators could sense that the aliens were not a threat to their human friends, so they remained peaceful. Drask found himself approached by a massive mother bear. Every military protocol in his training demanded defensive action. Instead, he remembered what he had learned by watching the children. He remained still, kept his breathing calm, and lowered his gaze slightly. The bear sniffed him carefully, determined he was not dangerous, and walked away. The Horvian commander looked at Velthara with something like awe in his eyes. "I just had a peaceful encounter with an apex predator from an alien world. I did not think that was possible." Kix observed everything, recording data that would reshape xenobiological understanding for centuries to come. The energy being watched as Jia brought a wolf cub over to show the aliens, explaining how wolves hunted and how humans had learned from them. Kyungsu spoke formally with the alien delegation, explaining human settlement on this world, their philosophies, and their hopes for the future. As he talked, the conversation naturally turned to the question that hung over everything. Velthara finally asked it directly. "We have observed that you possess a unique ability. You can befriend predators easily, naturally. You can make peace between enemies. We need to understand, do you know you can do this?" The humans looked at each other in confusion. Donghyun spoke carefully. "We do not think of it as a special ability. We simply talk to animals the way we talk to each other. We listen, we learn what they need, and we try to be good neighbors." "But you do more than that," Drask said. "You change their behavior. You make wolves and bears work together. You turn territorial predators into cooperative communities." Sojin spoke up. "We do not change them. We help them see what they already know inside. Every living thing wants safety and happiness. Every mother wants her children to thrive. Every creature wants enough food and a safe place to live. We just help them remember that they can achieve these things together instead of fighting over them." Morthex himself materialized then, having decided to witness this moment personally. His consciousness form appeared as a shimmering presence that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The humans drew back at his appearance, but the predators showed no fear. They sensed power, but not threat. The ancient chancellor spoke directly to the humans. 12,000 years ago, we encountered another species with abilities similar to yours. The Vorhath could befriend any creature, build alliances across species barriers. But they used this gift to conquer and dominate. The Galactic Council eliminated them completely. We committed genocide to protect freedom." The clearing fell silent. The weight of that confession hung in the air like a physical thing. Hyejin's expression hardened slightly. "And you considered doing the same to us?" "We did," Morthex admitted. "Many members voted to eliminate humanity before you could spread across the galaxy. They feared you would become what the Vorhath became. But we are not the Vorhath, Kyung-Soo said quietly. We do not seek to dominate anyone. We seek to understand and to connect. How can we be certain? Morthex asked. How do we know that in 1,000 years humanity will not use its gifts to reshape the galaxy according to its will? Young Jae-won, who had been quietly observing, spoke for the first time. The 12-year-old boy looked at the ancient alien leader with clear, honest eyes. Because we know what it is like to be weak. Our ancestors were not the strongest animals on our original world.